And then ever wondered if you're an Elvis person or a Beatles person? Um, it's a surprisingly telling question, because I grew up with the King thanks to my mom. Um, but high school introduced me to the magic of the Beatles, largely through a friend and a certain documentary series and cleating. I snagged the complete 8-episode VHS box set of uh, when it debuted, and I held on to those tapes longer than my VCR. And now it's streaming on Disney Plus, and it's still incredible, even 3 decades later. The surviving Beatles, Paul, Ringo, and George, tell their story alongside interviews with John Lennon. It's the closest we'll ever get to a Beatles reunion. It felt perfect then, and it largely still is. And but the new 9th episode released with the streaming version reveals something I never realized a Bunky, Tom, and Creature. Page the coin. Um, it's not a bad episode. In fact, it's potentially the best. It simply highlights what the original series was missing. The power of lay in seeing the 3 living Beatles working together again after decades. Their 1970 breakup is well known. They remain friends, but collaboration seemed impossible. However, most of the original footage features Paul, George, and Ringo speaking individually to the camera. There's some group interview footage, but surprisingly little for nearly 8 hours of content. Uh, Episode 9 changes that it's a documentary about the documentary, showing the Beatles discussing the making of and recording the new songs Free as a Bird and Real Love. This means we find to see them together creating music. Beyond that, there's additional interview material of the trio interacting, joking, and clearly enjoying each other's company. They reminisce about the iconic Beatles haircut and Beatle boots and share stories from the EMI studio. Seeing them play off each other, I realized how much of this dynamic was missing from the original series. It's heartwarming, um, especially knowing that we've since lost George Harrison and George Martin. I wish there had been more of this in the initial point two, but the final episode is a welcome addition, a postscript that will delight any Beatles fan, old or new. Why did the Beatles break up? Because they couldn't decide who got to be the drummer. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.